Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen reiterating concerns today about the strength of the economy in a speech at the Economic Club of New York, reinforcing the belief that the Fed is going to keep interest rates low for a long time. Here with the big takeaways is Mary Beth Fisher. She's the Managing Director and Head of U.S. Interest Rate Strategy at Societe Generale. Mary Beth, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me on, Sarah.
So, the speech today, any big surprises from Janet Yellen?
No, absolutely not. Unfortunately, you could see that in the markets. There was no reaction really whatsoever. The 10-year Treasury went in at 264, came out at 264. The Dow was a little bit lower than it is right now, was up 120 points, sold off a tiny bit to plus 90, then went right back to 119 by the time the Q&A was over. The market's reaction was just almost an afterthought. It was the same message from Janet Yellen. It was very on point. She was very dovish. She reiterated all the normal claims that she's had in her last three speaking engagements dating back to the congressional testimony in February. Inflation is still low. Unemployment is still not nearly where they want it to be in their 5.2 to 5.7% channel. And she kind of went through a history of forward guidance from where they were to where they are now.
And of course, the Fed has dropped this employment rate target that was kind of spooking people for a little while. So what are the keys that they are looking at right now?
Well, she kept them very vague, and she went through kind of a laundry list of we're looking at long-term unemployment. One thing she did highlight was they would like to see wage inflation, which is an interesting thing to bring up for the Fed because there's not a very strong correlation between wage inflation and regular inflation. I'm quoting my economist now, so if I'm getting into an area over my head, so please forgive me. But they would like to see wage inflation. We in the country would like to see wage inflation because it means the slack in the labor market is starting to dissipate. And that's really the biggest concern of the Fed, of Congress, of the economy at large right now.
Now let's talk a little bit about the long-term unemployment aspect of this, because of course we've heard Ben Bernanke bring this up before. Now we're hearing Janet Yellen say that she thinks it's an issue. Why is the Fed so concerned about this?
I think it's a concern for Congress. It's a concern for policymakers. Obviously, it's a concern for the Fed. You don't want to see those people get left behind permanently and dropped out of the labor force permanently. I would say that in my personal view, and that's all this is it's starting to take a little bit of veering towards a policy focus, which the Fed normally doesn't have. The Fed was, chartered by Congress to be an independent agency within the government, not to be a government policymaker itself. And for Janet Yellen to go out and again sort of talk about what the public sector can do to, deal with long-term unemployment, to deal with income inequality it's a little bit of a shift for a Fed chair. It's not, Ben Bernanke did talk about it. He talked about it at length. He also gave speeches that were very direct about how important it is for the central bank to stay independent and not be influenced by the political process.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take. We will see how far Janet Yellen pushes that message. Mary Beth, we're going to
It'll be interesting to watch.
Thanks very
Sarah.
much for joining us.